Hi, Maribel. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I think we figured out the tech stuff finally. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Any feedback?
Nope, none on my end.
Perfect.
Great.
Hey, everyone who's joining us. Let us know where you guys are joining us from. We'd love to see what kind of cities and states we have up in here. So excited to be able to talk to you, Adina.
Yes, you too. Thanks so much for making the time. I'm excited for our conversation. And so for those of you who are new to joining Immigrant Finance, I'll just say a quick word and then introduce Maribel, and she can give some background on what she does. We have a new Instagram page for those of you listening on Instagram. Some of you might have seen our account got disabled when we were traveling in Mexico last week. So not sure if I'll get back open, but in the meantime, or maybe permanently, we're now at immigrant.finance. And my name is Adina again. I started Immigrant Finance with my husband, Mauricio, who's an immigrant from Ecuador, after we went through the whole experience of really struggling to figure out finances when he came here as an immigrant. You know, we didn't know if he could do basic things like have a bank account or a credit card, and there was like no information out there. I'm also an immigration lawyer, so I use that background to understand the financial system for immigrants as well. And we're recording today live on a few different platforms and also for the Immigrant Finance podcast. And very pleased to have our guest today, Maribel from Our Wealth Matters. So thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me and for inviting me on your podcast. And it sucks to hear about how, your account got closed down during traveling of all things, which kind of sucks, especially, when we want to then go on vacation and still update our following. And Instagram's like, no, you're a fake account. You're someone fake trying to take over this account.
Yeah, it happens. There's actually like a whole crazy story about it I just recorded before this that people, if you want to hear, the episode's called like why you need your online business to not be just on Instagram because these things happen, and like, yeah, it's just a good lesson and reminder to like make sure you have your system set up and be on multiple platforms, all of that. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Please introduce yourself for people who are new to hearing about you and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Maribel Francisco. I am the creator and founder of Our Wealth Matters. And basically, I'm a money coach for people who are ready to take that next step and they're ready to just be like, okay, I'm ready to invest. I have the mindset already that I want to create wealth for me, for my family, my children. I want to see if I can retire early. Like, just show me the math and give me the list and let's do this and get started. And that's me. That's where I thrive.
I love it. And I really enjoyed before we started going live, hearing a little bit about how like you're such a doer and you're just like, let's just go make it happen. Like, let me give you the support and guidance how to get there. I'm the same way. I'm such a doer too. And we started talking about like, well, there's all this mindset stuff as well that like, I think it's a mix of both you need to really get started. But like, let's hear a little bit about just to get started, your connection to immigration with your family and how you relate to that topic.
Yeah, so I'm a first-gen born and raised in California. My parents are both from Michoacán, Mexico, from the Meseta Purecheta, which is basically an indigenous culture in Mexico that has its own culture, own dialect, own food, and they immigrated here to the United States and started a life here. Then I went to preschool. I got sick. My dad told my mom, why don't you leave work? And she worked as a seamstress. And he's like, why don't you leave work? Because Maribel's getting sick, and it's probably because there's nobody here to like continuously be watching over her, And so she left work. Shortly thereafter, my dad got deported, and he can never come back. And so my mom's left here with me, and no job. Has to still pay the rent, and now has to come up with the income that my dad was bringing because she had left her work. But she's like, I'm like, Mom, how'd you do it? And she's like, I was working still in seamstress, like behind his back a little whenever he went to work. Oh, sorry. Is it okay to speak Spanish?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So she's like, me traía el trabajo, and I would just like work on a little maquinita, and then when he was coming home, I would like put everything away and just return the work, and then she'd give me a little bit of money. So basically, she was like a subcontractor to that seamstress doing work for somebody somebody else. So she's like, I still had a little bit.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I said, so she still had a little bit of money, and I thought you said something, so I just wanted to let you say what you were going to say.
Oh, I was just saying she was a hustler. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, so of course, my mom, I feel like that's where I get it from. Like anything that happens, I feel like if it had happened to me with a daughter in a new country, you know, the person who's giving us our main sustenance has left, and Spanish is not my first language, and even if it were, that's not the main language of the United States. You know, I feel like all the walls would have just closed in on me, but not for my mom. My mom was just like, we're just going to make this happen because I have two choices. I can go back home and my US born daughter who has all of these opportunities because she was born here won't be able to get those opportunities. And even if I bring her back for when she starts elementary, she will be so behind because she won't know English. She won't know Spanish. She's going to know dialect. She's going to know Purepecha dialect, and that is not going to serve her at all to be able to thrive. And then all the sacrifice that she did to try to get to the United States was going to be for naught, right? I was just going to already be behind. So she's like, or option number 2, I stay here, I get a job, and I figure shit out.
Yeah. I mean, it says so much how strong she must be. And I can, like, even kind of having just met you recently, I can tell you're very strong too and must get that from her. Wow. Oh, I'm so sorry that your family had to go through that, and what a struggle. I know a lot of people in our audience can relate to and have gone through, and just commend you for sharing it, because a lot of people don't like talking about, you know, very personal stuff like that, like deportation, but it's happening a lot, and we need people to know, you know, they're not alone. So I really appreciate you sharing your story. Yeah. How did that impact your, you know, your relationship with money?
As far as money, so basically we grew up, once my dad left, we did spend about a week or 2 living in the car and, you know, just getting food from leftovers from, she was also going to night school to learn English. And there she had met some friends, some other people that she had class with. And I remember, you know, sometimes we would go over to their houses and they'd be like, oh, hey, we have these leftovers, or come eat with us, you know? And like, you know what that's about, right? Like, they know the situation you're going through. And so they're like, hey, we just want to help you out. I was also going to preschool, and so sometimes we would have leftover food, and the teachers were like, hey, we have leftover sopa de letras, which to me was like, great, awesome, oh my gosh, I get to eat this at home, you know? But I feel like now understanding it and looking back, it's like, damn, that was a real big help.
Thank God for their generosity, and, like, again, just the strength you and your mom had to get through that, and she must be so proud of you where you are now. I bet it was totally worth it.
Yeah. So right now I, you know, graduated college with my bachelor's. I work for an entertainment company, and so she, you know, she's like, oh, you're earning pretty good money, but also she's done really well for herself, because now she studied to be an income tax preparer. Now she has her own income tax like firm, and that's her way of giving back to the community. And so that's part of where I get a little bit of the knowledge about, like, okay, how your investments affect your taxes at the end of the year as well. So, you know, like long-term versus short-term taxes. And ever since I like turned 18, it was like, okay, you're getting your notary license, because at that time you had to have a notary seal to get your ITIN number, so that as an undocumented immigrant you could do your taxes. And at the same time, she's like, okay, and now you're going to become an income tax preparer. And I'm like, but I'm going to go to college. She's like, that's fine, but I need help. And, you know, it just helps build trust with clients as well. It's like, yeah, she's inputting your information, but you're going to be coming to me at the end of your process, but she's also licensed. And so in the office, it's just like hers and mine's like all around for like, she has more than 10 years experience, but it's just like, it goes all around the 4 walls of the office with like all our certifications. And I'm like, cool.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Wow. So how did she go from doing the seamstress work to getting into that work and getting all the training?
Basically, she, you know, partnered up with somebody else. She just like met someone, and that person was, I don't know in what sense the person said it, but they said it, oh, so you're going to be a seamstress all your life? Like, that's what you're going to do all your life? And because that's when H&R Block was giving these, and I think they still do it now, they train you right before tax season so you can get your license, and then you have to work with them right after for the season. So you basically have your job set up, right? Like, train with us, we'll pay for your stuff. You just pay us for the course and you already have a job for the tax season. So she saw that and the person was like, oh, why don't you do that? And she's like, no, I'm okay, you know, because she's like a super hard worker. So she was like the best earning or one of the best earning seamstresses at this like minimum wage paid job. Because when you're a seamstress, you could either get paid by the hour or you could get paid by the piece. And she would always go with the piece because she could finish so many more pieces and get paid so much more that way than working for her time. So she's like, no, you know, I'm fine. I got seamstress work. And the person was like, okay, so you're always going to be a seamstress? Like, that's what you're going to do with your life? And she was like, okay, you know what? I'm signing up. She's like, I'm signing up. And then that led to her getting her license, working for H&R Block, leaving, working for another small firm, leaving there, like that firm then dissolved. And she was like, what am I going to do now? And then leaping into faith and just doing her own business and doing her own thing.
That life-changing question she was asked. Can we just talk about for a second, like, wow, the power that having someone who believes in you can make, because I know that's a lot of what you do and what I do for people is being like, no, I know you can do this, you know, like, so to tell me more about like, you know, how important that was for your family for the rest of your life, that question was posed to her and someone believed in her.
Yeah, and I think even if it's posed when someone doesn't believe in you, right? To me, I feel like that also just encourages you to do something just to prove someone wrong. Like, you think I'm going to be doing this all my life? No, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do this other thing that could potentially set me up for something else. So, you know, even then, because I've seen it work both ways with people, you know, they either get that support and go like, I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Or somebody says, I don't think you can do it. And then the person gets the whole like, I'm going to prove you wrong and I'm about to do this. And then do it so well that you're going to have to eat your words. So I feel like you have to find that balance with clients. You know, I do try to start going the first route, which is like, listen, I know you can do it. I believe in you. Because the first thing is they have to believe in themselves, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, if they need it though, I'll be that tough coach too and be like, show me you can do this, because maybe nobody thinks you can and you're going to show them wrong. Like, we have to find the right way to talk to different types of people and support them and meet them at their place, meet them in their middle so that we can find the right way to encourage them. And I feel like, especially with building wealth, there is that thought that, hey, maybe I can't do it because I don't have a social security number, because nobody else before me has done it, because I don't know how to do it, because nobody has ever taught me how to do it. And it's like, you know what? I understand that. And it's great that you're taking this step to get a coach, because I'm going to do that for you then, right? I have the information, I have the knowledge. I know that you can do it. I know that you aren't barred from investing if you have an ITIN number instead of a social security number, if you are undocumented rather than documented, like you got your documents fully in order. That isn't a barrier. And there is actually no law that bars you from starting to invest. So let's do it.
Exactly.
And you know what? Let's run the numbers. Let's do the math. Can you actually become work optional? Can you actually retire early? If so, do you want to work to that? Is that something you want to do? Like, what does your rich life at the end of the day look like? Because you have to know a qué le estás tirando, right? Because then you're going to just get bogged down and trying to save all this money, and you might be like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And that's when we'll go back to your rich life goals and be like, this is why you're doing it. Because you want to move to Thailand. You want to live by the beach. You want to be okay and just live out your days. And then you want to set up your own business and stop working for somebody else. And you want to make an impact. Once you retire, you want to like continue working, not fully retired, but you're now your own boss. You're now like, taking care of you and your family, and not depending on somebody else like a company to be paying you your wages.
Absolutely. Let's dig in more into this, like the doing aspect of that, because I speak to a lot of people who, like, when you push them or like even on their own, they can't articulate very well, like, this is what I want, this is the vision I have, you know, this is what I'm working toward. But then when it comes to actually taking the steps, it's like a lot of people will just pause and have analysis paralysis or get frozen, right? And the action never happens. So how would you encourage people to start the doing?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are like, I want to start investing, right? If we bring it back to finance specific, they're like, I want to start investing, but I don't know how. I don't know where. What brokerage do I go with? What's the difference between a brokerage account and like my like a brokerage company and a brokerage account, like how do I even go about buying things? Like, and that's where it's like, okay, you can go and watch a bunch of YouTube videos and step by step, but you have to know what you're looking for, right? Like how to open a 401k or a Roth IRA with Fidelity. Like you have to know the keywords already. Or you can go reading in a book, or you can follow Instagram personalities or TikTok. There's like a lot of free resources out there, but I feel like part of it, you also kind of have to know what you're looking for, right? You have to know some of the keywords. But if you're like, listen, I just want someone to tell me, all I know is I want to start investing and I want to not lose my money, or, you know, put it in the lowest risk possible thing that's still bringing me money in at the end of the day. And you're like, but I don't want to go through this whole hours and days and weeks searching through all of these free resources when I don't even know, you know, what I'm supposed to be looking for. Like, what if I don't even have a health savings account available to me and I'm reading up on HSAs, like on health savings accounts that doesn't even pertain to me? Like, I want someone who's just going to tailor it to me and bring me the information that actually matters to me and is specific to my situation. And that's where I feel like a coach comes in, because they can be like, okay, let's figure out what's specific to you, what kind of health plans you have. And even if you don't know what an HSA is, you can sometimes, like, you know what your health plan is. Or I can be like, go to your HR and ask them, do you have an HSA? And then you could come back with yes, no. And it's like, okay, moving on. If you don't have one, moving on, let's go. And like getting you on the fast track to start investing rather than you having to spend all that time trying to figure it out. And also trying to figure out just like, okay, even if you know what brokerage to open, unless somebody takes you in the step-by-step, like what button do I press now? What do I say yes? Do I say no? Some people can get stuck in those, right? And I feel like, especially first gen may understand this when you're helping your immigrant parents fill out forms and they're like, what do I do here now? What do I do here now? And you're just like, or what does this say? And you're trying to translate and help them at the same time. I feel like that's what a coach is, right? You could just be like, okay, yes, I've done this before. Or if not, I understand what the brokerage is this contract is trying to say. Okay, yes, you want to click yes, or you want to click no. Okay, click next. Okay, now they're asking you for your bank account number. I feel like that's where a coach comes in, because they're a real life person helping you at the other end, trying to accomplish your goals, rather than going like, okay, we're going to figure it out on YouTube now, and now we're going to try to read this book. Is this article even pertaining to you? We don't know. We'll figure it out. It's kind of more like, okay, no, we're going to figure out your situation. We're going to do ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to figure out your why. Why are you doing this? And we're just going to make a plan, and we're going to run through this and get you set up.
I couldn't agree more. The key part is saving time, because that's the one thing you're never going to get back. You can get your money back, right? You'll never get your time back. And I always tell people we wasted like 7 years of our time trying to figure out the whole financial system for immigrants, because there like wasn't anything out there on it. And if someone had just like handed us a map in the beginning that we could have done in a few weeks, I mean, we would have like made thousands and thousands of dollars during those 7 years, because investing's all about time in the market. So a lot of people are like, okay, this is a really big thing. I have to like go research everything perfectly before I make this big decision and all this, but you end up just basically losing money, because investing's all about that time in the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I completely agree, because I had always heard the saying, like, time is money, but that's when I was just working a 9 to 5, right? And I was like, what do you mean time is money? If I take the day off and you don't like have sick pay or whatever, it's just like, I'm still getting paid zero. I have all this time, but I'm not doing anything with it. So, you know, it's not bringing me any extra cash. What do you mean? And then when I started doing investing, where you literally have money that may be sitting in your savings account and doing nothing and just losing its value because of inflation, when you put it over into investing, it's just sitting there, same as it was in your savings account. But now it has that time to grow in the market. And actually, the longer you leave it there, so the longer time you spend in the stock market, the more it'll grow, and the lower your risk of having any of your value or any of your contribution. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's when it clicked for me personally. And I was like, this is what they mean when they say time is money. Like, literally, just the longer I leave it there and the earlier you start, the more money you're going to get at the end. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is what they mean.
And the more money you lose if you don't just start.
Yeah, it's the lost opportunity fixed, right? It's like you can either make $10,000 if you leave it from now to X amount of years, or you can lose that money through inflation. Like this year was 5%, right? So if you had $5, now it's just like worth less. Now it's like I shared it earlier this week in my stories. I was like, in elote when I was growing up, it was $1. You right? You see the elotero, you flag them down, you get an elote for $1. Now it's $2, and it's not that they like included taxes this time. It's just inflation. The price of things went up, and I'm like, what? Back then, with like if somebody gave you $1, and you're like, if because sometimes I didn't have a domingo, right? I didn't have an allowance. But I could always ask for something. I was like, hey, Mom, can I have $1? I had purchasing power with $1. Now, if I have $1, I can maybe buy chicles? Like, I need $2 at least to get my elote.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us about how you started Our Wealth Matters.
Right. So Our Wealth Matters came about because I went down this rabbit hole and I learned all these things about personal finance. Because all I knew when I started was I have a 401k. And something about maybe matching. Like if you put money in, your employer puts money in, but I didn't really know how to do the math on, okay, well, how much do I need to put in to get like the maximum, right? Their maximum contribution. It was just like, okay, maybe if I put $5 or $100, but not knowing like the exact numbers. So I went down this rabbit hole. I started a new job basically, and I didn't know if I was going to go back to school full time. So I didn't start my 401k. And I was like, I don't know when I might need that money, right? Especially if I'm leaving not that much longer after getting in the job. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm still at that job. It's a great team, and I've been able to balance some studying with work. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 years. I've lost out on whatever maybe matches they were giving. Let me look more into this. And I went down a rabbit hole of just information. And I found out about 401ks. I found out about IRAs, FSAs, HSAs, like Fidelity, Vanguard, index funds, ETFs. And I just there was one point where I was just, all my days were merging into one, where it's like you wake up really early and you go to sleep really late. It was sometime in like Christmas break, and everything was just like, I didn't even know how many days had passed. I was just like, still, I have days off. I am looking through the internet. And for every new piece of information that I got, I was opening up like 5 new tabs just to get more information, because I had more questions about what this article had just said or this video had just told me. So at the end of that journey of a couple like days, I emerged on the other side with, okay, I'm going to open up a brokerage account. I'm going to get index funds. I know which exact like ticker symbols I'm going to get. I'm going to do this mathematics, because in my 9 to 5, I'm a senior financial analyst. So I'm pretty good with Excel. I can make it do the math that I want. So I rearranged, like, okay, this much is going to go to my emergency fund. I'm going to, instead of contributing this much to like my savings or just spending it, this is going to go to a brokerage account. I'm going to, you know what, I have enough to max out IRA. Actually, I have enough to max out 2 IRAs and then the sum. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, great. Let's do that before the deadline. So I did that. I like opened up brokerage accounts. I opened up different retirement accounts and split all my money up in between them. And I was like, and here's my plan for this next year, 2021. And then I was like, so many more people need to know about this. Like, everyone should know about this. Why is this not taught in school? And some people are like, hey, it's not taught in school because there isn't a desire for it. Like, you're not going to pay attention to money conversations unless you have skin in the game, unless you already have money. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but as a first gen from an immigrant family, we know about money at a pretty young age. We're either helping our parents out in their businesses, or we're helping them do some type of work that, like, we know kind of what it takes to bring in money into our household. We're not just like, hey, can I have my allowance? And we don't even know how money works. No.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the truth for a lot of people, but I know for me, and I've heard the stories of other first-geners, that kind of seems to be the ongoing thing, that, some of our parents have businesses, or, we're very in tune with what we can and cannot have because of what we can and cannot afford. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. I think you should still teach it to us, because we do know about money. In high school, some people are getting allowances, or we've already been exposed to working, and we do have money. And there isn't a lot of like where the argument is that, oh, like, there isn't a lot of need. The word is slipping, but where they're like, there isn't a lot of desire to learn about personal finance because these kids don't have skin in the game. I'm like, yeah, there isn't a lot of desire to learn about the Pythagorean theorem and geometry. Like, show me the difference of how many adults are still using that geometry information later in their life and how useful it is to them later in their life versus what if they learned about personal finance and how useful that's going to be to them later in their life. Like, I still think it should be taught, like maybe a little class, or you know what? Give them a little bit of fake money and show them how it works. Like, we can do simulations. They have, like, even if it's a game, you get kind of conditioned of like, I have skin in the game, right?
Yeah. Well, I have my own like conspiracy theories why I think it's not taught in school.
Oh my gosh, share.
I mean, I think it's very intentional, right? Actually, I read something a while ago that when they were forming the country, the founding fathers and all that, I forget which founding father was, like George Washington something, suggested that all public schools had to teach personal finance, and apparently all the banks fought it and got it out of the curriculum, which, like, it makes sense because how do banks and how do the financial system make money is like people not knowing how to manage money and like getting fees and having to take loans and all of that. And I think with this community in particular, with immigrants and their families, there's a lot of people who don't want to see them powerful, as we know how the immigration laws are designed, right? And so, like, let's just not teach it. Let's not teach the most important thing that you need to know.
Right. And I feel like it spills over to other people that maybe they didn't intend, right? Because it doesn't just affect the immigrant community. It affects a lot of Americans who are in credit card debt. And maybe if we had a personal finance class, they'd know how to manage credit cards. And, maybe they'd know about utilization ratios and to not go over 30%. And if you're watching this stream and this is going over your head, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we should have a class on this and about this. And why not? Because if the conspiracy theory is to just hurt those people who are not part of your country or not citizens, I got news. It's starting to hurt your citizens as well. It's hurting your citizens. It's hurting those people.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even if you didn't intend to affect them, it's still affecting them.
And there's a reason there's like this very small class of people who are taught this information in their families, and it's passed out, it stays in their families, and it's kind of like you're either in that and you get it or you're not, right? Yeah. And so that's why I'm so excited to see more pages like what you're doing, what other people are doing. They're just getting this information out to whoever's ready to hear it. Because it's life-changing. Like everything you were describing with you like frantically in the night searching everything on the internet about 401ks and stuff. I remember when we went through that, and it was just like, oh my God, there's a way out of this situation. Like, we don't have to necessarily be paycheck to paycheck struggling every month for the rest of our lives. Like, I thought that was the only option until I started studying personal finance. So it's a really positive way, I think, for people to be empowered, and we really need more immigrants and their families to have access to this information.
Yeah. And I also want to add that at least for my family, we're an agricultural family, right? So back where everyone comes from in Mexico, we're agricultural people, and they tend to have their own land and be their own bosses, but in an agricultural sense. So I feel like if anybody comes from that mindset, they know how to build wealth, right? They know the idea of like, I'm going to buy land, I'm going to then pass it on to my children when I pass on, and they're going to build up their land and pass it on, right? So they do have an idea of wealth, but then coming to the United States, it's hard to buy land and replicate that. So that's where it's important to me to teach, especially immigrant families, even though it doesn't matter how well they knew the financial system or didn't know the financial system of the country that they came from, they can't necessarily put everything to use here in the United States because there's different laws, because it's a different financial system. And part of that is they may not even trust the financial system they came from, right? If it like collapsed once or twice or multiple times. So part of that is getting people to trust, especially in the immigrant and especially like community. Step one is not to learn how to do all this. Step one is just to get them to trust the system and be like, I understand that you came from a different system, But this is why you came to the US, right? Because you thought that this was actually a system where you could build wealth and trust the system. Let's do that. And step 2 is starting to learn all of that. And that's where I'm just like, I want to get people on that, like, trust the system, because that's how we're going to be able to build wealth. Because don't just come over and then think that it's work 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. And because you're earning USD instead of pesos or instead of other currency, and that's a good conversion rate, that's the way I'm going to build wealth. Not necessarily. The cost of living is also higher. You're getting paid higher, but the cost of living is too. And that's where a lot of people are like, where they say like, ven agarre los dólares in the US, and people are like, what? I'm working like every single day, 9 to 5 or longer, for minimum wage or less, depending on your working conditions.
Yeah.
Where's the part where I become rich? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, so that's the next step, where now you have a little bit of saved, and now we need to trust the system and start investing. Like, like, it sucks that I know that there are families that risk everything, casi la vida, just to get here and stop one step short of supercharging their money, because they don't know about investing, or because they don't trust the system to invest in the system.
I love the way you described it. That's absolutely right. And I have thought about that more in terms of mindset, though I'm very aware of the mistrust. Like, when my husband and Mao was growing up in Ecuador, there was a year where they had like 10 presidents in 1 year. And all the bankers took everybody's life savings and fled to Miami, and everyone lost everything. And there was like no FDIC insurance or anything to get it back. No, the government could do nothing. So he was terrified to start investing when he came here, and it took a lot of trust building and like familiarizing him with the system, and him seeing me go through it and feel confident, and like seeing the numbers. Sometimes you just need exposure, and that's something I see that happens a lot with the clients we work with and their parents, because a lot of their parents are like, you shouldn't invest, that's gambling, that's super risky, and they're really scared. But then they see their child starting to do it and starting to feel comfortable. They start seeing the numbers. And then usually most of them are like, can you open my account too? Like, right. So it's just time, but I totally agree with you. It's trust. I've just been thinking of it more in terms of like fear about money in general, like fear of losing money is a big thing too. Right. Have you seen that as well?
I think that's one of the main concerns, right? Because even I, who have already started investing, my biggest fear is losing that money, right? And that's why I think a lot of people get stuck in the learning phase, because they're like, I want to learn everything that I can and know that I'm doing it right so that I lose the least amount of money. I actually want to try to make money, not lose money. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck and don't take that next step to actually start investing money. And the longer you take to start investing, the more money you're actually losing, because of that opportunity cost, where the market has done really well this year. And if you have waited up until now, you've lost, like, I think it's like 15% growth this year so far. Just in this year. And so I get it. I get the fear. And that's why I think it's important to share those success stories of people who have done it. And if you're having money wins, and just talking about money, right? Money is such a taboo, I think, in the Latino culture, and I'm sure other immigrant communities, where they're like, we're not going to talk about money. Like, certain things you don't talk about at the table is X, Y, Z, and one of them is money.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we need to start having more conversations about money, so that people can kind of maybe bring out those figures and be like, hey, yes, maybe do index funds if you don't want to be spending hours and hours doing research and finding like unicorn companies. And the longer that you're invested, the lower your chance of actually losing money in the stock market. That's why you want to get started earlier. And just trying to bring up those truths and facts. And some people need pictures, some people need numbers, and trying to show them with the way that is going to communicate it best to them that there is risk involved, but the longer you're in the stock market, the lower your risk gets.
Yep, that's absolutely right. It's a long game. Like, we're not trying, it sounds like we're both similar approach, like not trying to beat the market, or get like a quick win, but it's really about that long-term building wealth and growing your money, that historically, has been proven to be between, over the past 100 years, an average of 7 to 12% in the total stock market.
Yeah. And that's part of what gives me confidence, right? That those statistics are like over the last 100 years. And I'm like, listen, if it's worked over the last 100 years, I understand that past performance doesn't dictate future performance, but the last 100 years is it's kind of pretty good, you know. Maybe if it could go throughout my lifetime too, then I'll be well off. And then also, you know, with the coach, knowing that like when you go through it with a coach, it's like you don't just go straight into investing. You have to have a little bit of stuff set up before then so that you don't start to emotionally trade and you don't see like a little dip in the stock market. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pull all my money out, because then you're gonna get fudged over in taxes, and then just all this other myriad of things that it starts like knocking over like little dominoes. And then, so I think like when you work with a coach, they walk you through, hey, first let's set up this, and now you're ready to invest, so that you don't start investing emotionally, and we can actually let your money sit there so that it can grow.
100%. Like getting ready. Like I think the most important part with investing is actually budgeting. Like making sure you have the money available to invest every month consistently. Because even if you save up all this money and you go and invest it, if you don't continue every month, it's going to be hard to have those numbers work out over time. So much of it is also about like improving your relationship with money, how you're spending, you know, all of being very mindful about, you know, where your priorities are, what your goals are. There's a whole bigger picture why it's so important to have a plan and to get support if you're not sure, you know, how to do that.
Yeah, because my main goal, right, when I first started, I was like, I just want people to know about investing, get people investing. And the more I got into the personal finance community, I realized that, okay, investing isn't necessarily step one. Like we need to set up other things before then. And so that's where I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this as like a coach, I'm going to start, investing isn't going to be step one. We need it a little down the line, because I want to make sure that you feel comfortable as someone who's investing, and that not all your like, you know, 100% of your money is over in the stock market all the time, right? Like the after your expenses or whatever. It's like, no, you need a little bit of an emergency fund too. Like we gotta knock, like carve this little piece of money out, you know, in case you lose a job, in case something happens, like, and something that speaks to you. Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? What makes you feel okay and safe so that we can leave that money invested?
Absolutely. Great. Well, if you had to share with people what the number one lesson is that you wish you had learned about finance in the beginning, what would it be?
I think I would have loved to learn about index funds, that they were even a thing, that they even existed. Because I remember in high school wanting to invest. I didn't exactly know what it was, but I was like, I think I have to sit down for hours and hours and figure out who these unicorn companies are. And I don't know if I even know where to start. And somebody just said, like, there are these things that are index funds, which is basically a basket of the top, you know, companies, or there's some that are rated, so they have more of the top companies and a little less of the smaller companies. I think I would have started investing much earlier. So I feel like that's one thing that I wish that was just like information distributed to everybody, that even if they don't know exactly what it means when they get that information, at least now they're aware of it, right? Because you can never miss out on something that you've never been a part of. So what I mean with that is, if nobody even tells you that this exists, that you can start investing in the stock market with $1, that index funds do exist and you don't have to spend hours researching, you're never going to be like, oh, I'm missing out on the stock market when you see those gains on the news, because you don't know that you can partake and you can participate in that wealth building. But if somebody at least comes and tells you that you can, later when you have money, you're like, hey, I remember the thing about investing. I think I can start that now. Like, let me go look at that again.
Yes, it's so true. I mean, index funds are a huge, very important tool for building wealth that it's very hard to beat as well. Like, even if you were to go spend the time to find these unicorn companies and stuff, doesn't mean they're going to perform better. It's pretty difficult to beat like index funds.
Yeah, even if you're like, hey, I'm going to go hire a Wall Street broker, a hedge fund manager at that, right? First of all, you're going to pay fees. Second of all, about like 90% of these people who literally work on Wall Street, it's literally not even their 9 to 5 job, because we know they work hours beyond the 9 to 5, who literally make it their life's work to try to beat the stock market. 90% of them can't beat the market, which is what the index funds track. So I'm just here going like, I'm gonna be a lazy investor. I don't want to spend hours like September. You know how it's historically bad and it dipped and a lot of people are making posts and everything. And so some people are like, oh yeah, when it dipped, did you guys sell? And me and some other people were just like, yeah, I don't even check my investments that often. Like,
yeah,
we're here for the long term. We just keep putting money in because we trust that in our strategy, which is I'm just going to ride the market wave, right? And those people who try to beat the market, they're important too. They are the people who make up that average that I'm riding on and building my wealth on. So go for it. And, it's not bad. You just want to, like, I want to build wealth. You just want to get there faster. And I understand, right? Like, we all want to move on to that next stage. Or we want to see if we can beat the market. Some people get adrenaline like shots from it. That's fine. You do you. I'm not going to knock you down for that because that's what I'm building my wealth on. You're making the average. We're cool. Keep doing you.
Yeah, or if anything, like that's a time to buy stocks when the market goes down because everything's on sale.
Exactly. I'm just like, guys, don't freak out. First of all, this happens like almost every year or every year. It's on sale. If you really believe in your strategy that you're using, now is the time to sell. Like, I remember seeing a post that said, nowhere else when things go on sale, like if you go to a store and things go on sale, do all the customers just walk out of the store, right? That's when the frenzy starts and everybody's trying to get in on it. That's the same way we should be with the stock market. Things are on sale, dude, go buy the thing. Like, you bought it for $100 like a month ago and now it's at 50, and now you can afford two. If you really want that and you really like that stock, why not? Like, go for it. If you really believe in what you're buying, do it. It's on sale. Now you can get more.
Totally. And this is why investing and almost everything with finance is like primarily psychological and emotional, because that's exactly what's going on. What you're describing, when people freak out, the market goes down and they sell it, even though they're going to lose a lot of money. It's all emotion. So that was a big takeaway for me to, like, when I finally realized and that clicked, like, oh, it's not really math and numbers. Like, I don't need to be amazing at math and numbers. I need to be amazing at training my brain to not freak out because it's going to go up and down.
Yeah,
we're
because
the long haul.
Yeah, and it takes like addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and for anything else, there's calculators out in the internet that we can use, like the compounding interest calculator. You know how to do that formula? Fudge it. We'll go to the, we'll go online and plug in some numbers, and it'll give us the number that we're expecting to see, or like, how much wealth am I going to grow in like 5 years? It'll just give us that number. So don't worry. It is definitely more of, I just need to be into with my emotions. And I feel like part of taking that emotion out of emotional trading is making sure that you have a good emergency fund. And so you have a good basis. So you feel that you are already taken care of no matter what happens with the stock market, and that you trust the plan that you're following, so that or you just trust that it's going to go up with time, just like it's been doing the last 100 years. And that if you don't actually invest, that inflation is going to start eating at the purchasing power of your money, just like it's been doing the last 100 years.
Yeah, it's the only way to not be losing your money is by investing. And there's multiple kinds of investing. Like, we're talking about the stock market. There's other types of investing, like real estate and business and yourself. But this is one of the easiest ways. Like, you use the word lazy investing. This is a way you can be lazy and have your money work for you while you're sleeping and make more. So
yes, this is one of my revenue streams. Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, I was saying this is like one of my revenue streams, right? And I love it because I just sleep, and every quarter I get some dividends, and so that helps it grow. And then with the stock market growth, I also get growth, and so I'm just like, yes. And if you then have your emergency fund in a high yield savings account, you get some interest. That's another revenue stream. Yep. Like millionaires have multiple types of revenue streams. Getting that interest, getting those dividends, getting that market growth with the money that you already earned and pay your taxes on, those are additional revenue streams. Don't leave money on the table.
Totally agree. Thank you for emphasizing all these points so eloquently. I really appreciate it. Where can people find, follow, and support you? And is there anything finally you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to follow and support, you can follow at Our Wealth Matters. I post English and Spanish content so that hopefully the English content just gets to anybody here in the US and beyond. And then the Spanish content they can forward to, their fellow wealth builders, whether it be your mom, your dad, your tios, your tias, who, necessarily English may not be their strong suit, or they prefer to see information in their native language. And I think that helps build trust. So I post in both. I also have a TikTok and I have other platforms, but I try to consolidate everything on my Instagram. As a final note, I would just say, be ready to invest in yourself, guys. Either put some time into learning about the stock market or, real estate investing or other types of investing that you want to do, or hire someone to just coach you and get you jump started on your journey, because you're just losing out more money by not getting started now and just continuously pushing it off. Like, let's get you started now. Let's get you building wealth now, because time is money.
Thank you, Maribel. So wonderful, and really appreciate the high energy. I can see that you are such a good coach and like get people moving. And I could see you being really good on TikTok. I gotta follow you there.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast and giving me this opportunity.
Of course, let's stay in touch. Take care.
Yes,
thanks so much. Bye.